Hello everyone, I'm Auntie Kara, but this is a video that is not for kids. This is another rendition of book recommendations for grown-ups who love fairy tales. Today we are going to be talking about the Practical Magic book series. It's a trilogy, and it's the basis for the movie Practical Magic, which is very, very popular. If you haven't seen it, please do yourself a favor and go see it. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. In my opinion, like the best of the 90s for sure. It stars Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock. So today I'm going to be reading to you from the Book of Magic, which is the third in the series. I do have the first two, Practical Magic and Rules of Magic, as well, but I've lent them out to friends, as I so often do with the books that I love. So we're going to be reading through from this one today, which is, I think, my favorite in the series thus far, so I'm excited to share it with you. It's relatively new compared to the first couple. I'm going to say something that might get me in trouble. Some people might not like it, but I found, for me personally, the first book, Practical Magic, this is the rare instance where I feel like the movie was a little bit better than the book, which doesn't happen very often. The movie is so remarkably amazing and they did such a good job with it. And I feel like the book has a bit of an element of romance that is a little bit too cheesy for my personal taste, but you might really love it. That said, I did really enjoy it still, and I love everything that Alice Hoffman writes. So please dive in. Like, don't let my recommendations stop you from that one because it is fabulous. I really, really love the movie. And I feel like the movie did a little bit better job in this instance. However, that being said, the other two books are fantastic. Like, could not put it down. Like, walking around my house with my book in my face because I couldn't put it down and I didn't want to stop. Definitely stories that pull you in. What I love about this trilogy is that each book kind of centers around a different generation of the family. So the Practical Magic series, the Practical Magic book, the first one centers around, it involves the whole family, but it's definitely centered around the relationship with Sally and Jillian, which are the characters portrayed by Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman in the movie. And they're the ones kind of driving the story forward. The second book, The Rules of Magic, deals primarily with the aunts and their brother Vincent as they're growing up and kind of their origin story-ish, how they came to magic and how they were raised, and kind of a bit of a background about how they all became who they are. It's really, really well done. All three of the books are full of beautiful imagery, and actually they all have a lot of really good factual information in terms of plant lore and working with herbalism and stuff like that. A lot of it is factual, and of course, before you try something, go look things up for yourself, because this is one of those books where I feel like it's based in a lot of factual stuff with that like added extension element of the supernatural that goes a bit beyond the factual. So it's kind of like exaggerated factual, if that makes sense to you. And lastly, the Book of Magic, the one we're reading from today, it deals with everyone a little bit more wholly than I would feel the other two books do. But it happens when Sally's children, Kylie and Antonia, are grown up, and it's kind of like they're coming of age, like, but more in like the early 20s, and them finding out that they're witches and about the family curse and everything like that. Again, do yourself a favor and read these. They're just so magical and beautiful, and I am so envious of the garden that they have and the house that they have, and the lives that they lead, even the hard stuff. This book sees them go off to London too, and to the UK. So there's a lot of really cool, different historical magical elements that the first two don't have. But as I said, all three of them are fantastic, and the story is utterly amazing. And I come back to it again and again. So let's dive in. The first section I'm going to read to you is fairly close to the beginning. That's part of the opening. I'm not going to read tons and tons because there are some pretty significant events in the family in this story, and I don't want to give anything away, and I don't want to ruin anything for you guys. So I've just picked things that I feel work to give you a sense of the story without giving you any of the juicy bits and ruin it for you. All right, here we go. Long ago, the library had been a jail where Maria Owens, the first woman in their family to set foot in Massachusetts in 1680, had been confined until the judges announced she would be hanged. Those were the days when witchery was forbidden and women were harshly punished, judged to be dangerous creatures if they talked too much, or read books, or did their best to protect themselves from harm. People said Maria could turn herself into a crow, that she had the ability to enchant men without ever speaking to them directly, and to compel other women to do as they pleased, so that they were willing to forsake their proper place in society and their own families. The court set out to destroy Maria, and nearly did, but she could not be drowned, and she did not back down. She blamed love for her undoing, for she'd chosen the wrong man, with dire consequences. Just before the rope that was meant to end her life snapped, she was miraculously saved. Maria called out a curse upon love. "Beware of love," she had written on the first page of her journal, now exhibited in the library, a display mothers in town often brought their teenage daughters to view before they started dating. Beware of love Beware of love that was dishonest and disloyal, love that would lie to you and trick you, love that could break you and condemn you to sorrow, love that could never be trusted. If Maria Owens had been less rash, she might have realized that when you curse another, you curse yourself as well. Curses are like knots. The more you struggle to be free, the tighter they become, whether they're made of rope or spite or desperation. Maria invoked an enchantment to protect the generations to follow, with her daughters' and great-granddaughters' best interests at heart. For their own safety, they must avoid love. Those who failed to abide by this rule would find that engagements would be tragic and marriages would end with funerals. Over the years, many of those in the Owens family had found ways to outwit the curse, always an intricate and risky endeavor. All the same, a person could trick fate if she dared. She could change her name, never admit her love, skip a legal union, vanish from view, or, for those who were careless and wild, simply plunge in and hope for the best, knowing that sooner or later everyone had to face her own destiny. The love curse is definitely the driving force of this book, as many who have watched the movie will remember. And I won't give away much, but I will say that this last book is very much an effort to resolve that problem for the family. So you'll have to read it to find out how it goes. All right, this is going to be the last section I'm going to read to you guys today. And it's more in the middle of the book. Sally carried lavender and sage in her coat pockets, and before leaving the pub she'd taken a shaker from the table and sprinkled salt on the soles of her shoes. She was purposeful, and yet despite all of her intended protection, including a dress hemmed with blue thread, she grew unmoored by the time she reached the door on Roseheart Mews. As it turns out, puddles had washed the salt from the soles of her shoes, and the lavender and sage had mostly fallen out to sprinkle the road when she darted across. As for the thread she had used, it was poorly dyed and already unraveling. She wasn't quite as protected as she'd hoped to be. There was no answer when she knocked, but when she leaned against the door, it slipped open, and she was surprised to find it unlatched. The bells made a small, rough sound that announced her presence. Sally called hello and received no answer. She could feel that something had gone wrong. The atmosphere seemed to be shrinking inward, as it does during a storm, and a charge of something resembling sheer blue electricity raced through her. She passed the piles of books stacked on the carpet, the small refrigerator and hot plate, a sink, a teacup washed, and set out to dry on a wooden rack, a glass of whiskey seemingly untouched. She opened the door into a second smaller space that functioned as a bedroom. The room was dark, but she could see a handsome man lying prone on the bed, naked, although at first glance he didn't appear to be so. Due to his blue tattoos, he seemed a painting as much as a man. His eyes met hers and held her stare, but he failed to object or tell her to get the hell out, though he appeared to be trying to move his mouth. In a moment, Sally realized that in fact he was gasping for air. It was as if he were drowning, and he spat out water, nearly choking as he did. He could not move or speak and was clearly panicked, both by his sudden malady and by the fact that he was making a fool of himself, uttering gargling noises when he meant only to speak. The palms of his hands were covered with red powder. The glare of that shade of red was so intense it forced Sally to take several steps back. She marveled at her sudden ability to see that color again, when for so long it had registered in shades of gray. Red was all she could see now. The ceiling was streaked with the same dye that was on the man's hands and feet, so that it appeared as if a profusion of blood-hued flowers had bloomed on the plaster, then fallen down upon him. On the floor beside the bed, bird bones that had been dyed scarlet were tied into a bundle with red string. It was as if only one color in the world existed here. Red heart, red hands, red magic. I hope that was enough of a taste to entice you guys. Please go out and read this book. If you do, or if you have read the series, please comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, if you have any books that you would like me to read and review, please don't forget to comment. I would love suggestions. And also, if you have kids who read my story, who like my storytime videos, and they would like a shout out to them, or they have a book they'd really like me to read, you can feel free to comment on this video as well, because my videos that are made for kids don't have a comment thread on them, because that's a part of YouTube policy. So enjoy Practical Magic. I hope it brings you as much joy and smiles and beauty and love and inspiration for magic as it did to me. And hopefully it won't take as long for me to get to the next book recommendation video. So hopefully I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Ta-ta for now.